The light bulb glowing in your ceiling, the signal that stops two trains from hitting each other head-on, the operation that saves a baby born blue with a heart that cannot move its own blood. 3 black American men built those, and the names history put on them belong to 3 white men. This is not a coincidence, and it is not an opinion. It is 3 separate cases, each with a patent number, a court record, or a payroll line you can still pull. Same shape, 3 times, built into the modern world you are sitting inside right now. This is not a list of 3 sad stories. It is one pattern, documented 3 times. A patent number, a court record, and a janitor's pay grade. And the first one is glowing over your head this minute. The bulb that made electric light practical did not stay lit because of the man whose name is on it. It stayed lit because of a draftsman, the son of people who had escaped slavery, who fixed the one part Edison could not. And watch the credit go to Edison anyway. In 1879, Thomas Edison demonstrated an incandescent light bulb, and the world remembers it as the moment electric light was born. But Edison's early bulbs had a problem nobody likes to put on the poster. They burned out fast. The carbon filament inside lasted hours, sometimes only a single day, before it crumbled. A bulb you have to replace every day is a laboratory curiosity. It is not something you wire into a city. The light bulb, as a thing you could actually sell and live with, did not yet exist. The man who fixed that was named Lewis Latimer. He was American, born in Boston in 1848, and he was born free only because his parents had escaped slavery. His father, George Latimer, was a fugitive whose capture in 1842 became a famous abolitionist case. Lewis grew up poor, taught himself mechanical drawing while working as an office boy at a patent firm, and became so good that he was the draftsman who prepared patent drawings for some of the era's biggest inventions, including, by many accounts, Alexander Graham Bell's telephone. By the early 1880s, Latimer was working for Hiram Maxim's United States Electric Lighting Company, Edison's direct rival, and it was there, not in Edison's lab, that Latimer solved the filament. The problem was how the carbon thread was made. Filaments cracked and burned unevenly because of how they were carbonized. Latimer devised a better process, a way of manufacturing carbon filaments inside a cardboard envelope that kept them from breaking and let them burn far longer and far more evenly. Here is the part of the record you can check. The process Latimer developed is United States Patent 252,386, a process for manufacturing carbons granted in 1882, naming Lewis Latimer as an inventor. A patent is public record. That durable, manufacturable filament is what turned the light bulb from a fragile demonstration into a product you could install in a house and forget about. Latimer made the light stay on, and then his career did something that should have settled the question of credit forever. He was hired away by the Edison Electric Light Company itself. He became their draftsman and their expert witness in patent fights, because nobody understood incandescent lighting on paper better than he did. In 1890, he wrote the first full-length book on the subject, a book called Incandescent Electric Lighting, the standard text of its day. He was one of the original Edison pioneers, the inner circle of the men who built the industry, so his name is on the light bulb. That is what the story should say next. It does not. The light bulb is Edison's. It is in every classroom that way, on every poster, in the cartoon bulb that floats over a character's head when he has an idea. And that idea bulb is Edison's bulb, the one that burned out in a day, not Latimer's, the one that lasted. Latimer got a place in the inner circle and a line in the specialist histories. He did not get the light. Hold that shape in your mind, a name lost not to a court or a contract, but to a story the country preferred to tell. You are about to see it again, harder, against a man who actually won. Because the next man did not just get written out of the story, he took Thomas Edison to court over a patent and beat him twice, and it still was not enough. His name was Granville Woods. He was American, born free in Ohio in 1856, and almost everything he knew he taught himself. He worked the railroads as a fireman and an engineer, read electrical engineering on his own time, and by his 30s, he was inventing faster than men with university degrees and laboratories behind them. The railroad was the most dangerous machine in American life. trains ran blind on the same tracks, unable to tell each other where they were, and they collided at blind curves in fog at night. And people died by the trainload. Woods solved it. In 1887, he patented what he called the Synchronous Multiplex Railway Telegraph, United States Patent 373,915. The idea was to use electromagnetic induction so that a moving train and a station, and one train and another, could send telegraph messages without a direct wire connection. For the first time, trains in motion could tell each other where they were. A blind machine was given a voice. The number is public record. The collisions that telegraph was built to stop had been killing Americans for decades. The press started calling Granville Woods the Black Edison, and Thomas Edison noticed. Edison challenged Woods's priority on telegraph-related work, claiming he had got there first. The case went to court. Woods won. Edison challenged him again. Woods won again. A self-taught black engineer, the son of a country that had been enslaving people in living memory, beat the most famous inventor in the world in a patent fight, not once, but twice, and kept his patents. Edison, the story goes, then tried to simply hire him. Woods said no. He held more than 50 United States patents before he was done, in telegraphy, in electric railways, in the systems that still move trains through cities today. He sold key patents to the giants of the age: General Electric, Westinghouse. The technology made fortunes. By every measure that the patent system promises, Granville Woods had won. He had the inventions, he had the patents, he had beaten Edison on the record, and the money still did not reach him. In 1910, Granville Woods died in New York of a brain hemorrhage, alone, with almost nothing. The man who taught the railroads to speak was buried in an unmarked grave in a Queens cemetery. It stayed unmarked for 65 years. Only in 1975 did a group of people raise the money to put his name on a stone. He beat Edison in court twice, and the country let him lie nameless in the ground for 2 generations. That is the second shape, and the third is the one you may have, without knowing it, depended on to keep someone alive. His name was Vivien Thomas. He was American, born in 1910, the same year Granville Woods died. And as a young man in Nashville, he was saving money to go to medical school. The Depression wiped out his savings. He took a job instead as a laboratory assistant to a white surgeon named Alfred Blalock at Vanderbilt and then at Johns Hopkins. He had no college degree and no medical degree. On the institution's books, for years, Vivien Thomas was classified and paid as a janitor. But in that laboratory, Vivien Thomas was doing surgery. He had hands of extraordinary precision and a mind for the mechanics of the body, and Blalock came to rely on him completely. In the early 1940s, a cardiologist named Blalock-Taussig brought them a problem. Babies born blue. Their hearts were malformed so that blood never reached the lungs to take on oxygen, and they slowly suffocated. There was no operation for it. It was considered hopeless. Thomas worked out the operation. In the dog laboratory at Hopkins, over hundreds of experiments, it was Vivien Thomas who developed the surgical technique, how to reroute the vessels so blood could reach the lungs, what instruments it needed, how to do it without killing the patient. He built some of the instruments himself. He had done the procedure dozens of times on the laboratory animals. Alfred Blalock had done it, fully, exactly once, assisting Thomas. On November 29, 1944, they operated on a 15-month-old infant who was dying, blue, in front of them. Alfred Blalock performed the surgery, and Vivien Thomas stood on a step stool behind him, looking over Blalock's shoulder, coaching him through the operation he himself had invented, telling the surgeon where to cut. The baby's lips turned pink. It worked. The Blalock-Taussig shunt would go on to save thousands of children, and it opened the entire field of modern heart surgery. The operation was announced to the world in a medical paper in 1945. It carried 2 names: Blalock and Taussig. Vivien Thomas, who had developed the procedure, was not on it. For years afterward, surgeons came from around the world to learn the operation from the man who knew it best. And the man who taught them in the laboratory was Thomas, still being paid less than the white technicians, for a long time still carried on the books at a janitor's grade. Blalock became famous. Thomas trained a generation of America's heart surgeons from a position the institution would not even name honestly. It took 27 years for his portrait to hang at Johns Hopkins, across from the portrait of Alfred Blalock in 1971. The honorary doctorate did not come until 1976, 32 years after the operation. Not an earned medical degree, he had been denied for decades. An honorary one, late, after the men he had taught had spent their careers operating with his technique. The honor was real, and it came decades late, and it did not undo a single year of being paid as a janitor for inventing an operation. So count the pattern. Lewis Latimer made the light bulb last, and the bulb stayed Edison's. Granville Woods beat Edison in court twice and died broke in an unmarked grave. Vivien Thomas invented an operation that saves children and was paid as a janitor while another man's name went on the paper. 3 inventions the modern world still runs on. 3 black men. 3 names that came off the work. And 3 white men or institutions who kept the credit. None of this was a single conspiracy. There was no room where men met to erase 3 people across 100 years. That is the harder truth. It was a story a country preferred to tell, and a patent system that paid the company, and a hospital that could not imagine a black technician's name on its triumph. Each one ordinary in its time. It is only when you set the 3 side by side, the filament, the telegraph, the shunt, that the same outline appears beneath all 3. The work was theirs. The credit went to a name the world found easier to remember. Erased minds, case files on the people history forgot to thank. New shorts every Tuesday and Saturday, a full story every Wednesday and Friday.